Hello everyone, and today I'm going to talk about very big topics. So I had really big trouble coming up with these presentations because when you try to define some concept here, you understand that you cannot do it without defining or going into some other topic. But still, I'm going to maybe give you a nice overview of these topics and think of it more as just binging Wikipedia with me. Because I'm not an expert on these topics, even though the bachelor's, my undergraduate degree, I did it with neural networks on classifying botnet attacks. I also have 10 plus years of full stack software development. I also did a unfinished master's degree in University of Tartu, and when I went there, I was mostly interested in studying the topics of computational neuroscience and quantum computing. And basically, after I did these courses, I kind of lost interest, and so also in my spare time, I did some courses on Coursera, like deep learning, mathematics for machine learning. And my hobbies is that I just like to try experiment and try completely different things, skydiving, meditating, going to theater. But once again, I'm not an expert on this topic, but I just have some knowledge. And also, I have a brain. So I like to think that I know something about the brain, right? Everybody has it. Almost everybody uses it. Let's talk a little bit about the history. So 19th century, people yet didn't know how the brain worked. But they had an idea that maybe it was the brain that was basically controlling everything that we do. And at these times, the only way to functionally understand what the brain does was by studying the effects of the damage on the brain. And there was this really interesting case in 19th century America. So a railroad worker by the name of Phineas Gage, he got a trauma where half of his frontal lobe was basically just removed by this rod that he's holding. And he became a curiosity. And basically they developed these stories that after this damage, he became really different with his character. So before he was really a good husband, a good worker, always on time and so on. And after that, he became really chaotic. He was just uncontrollable. And for example, right now, we know that the frontal lobe of the brain is actually kind of responsible for us controlling our actions and emotions. But also this anecdote has this interesting thing that this only happened for some time because later he recovered and he became again a normal human being. And this thing is called neuroplasticity. So your brain is capable not only of learning something new, but if the part of your brain gets damaged, other parts of the brain can overtake these functions. So pretty interesting. During school years, for example, I heard that your neurons don't recover and so on, but turns out they do. And a little bit later after that, also in 19th century, it was the first time that scientists got a look at what the brain consists of on the cellular level. And it was Ramon y Cajal, it was Spanish scientist that actually did the first drawings of neurons, and he found that what the brain consists of are these cells. which like they have a nucleus, they have an axon, and they have synapses which connect to other neurons. And the connections between neurons, they are chemical. So inside of the neuron, we have electrical signal, which releases chemicals, which then bind to like another neurons, and this is how like information propagates through your brain. And there are many different types of actually neurotransmitters, and interesting thing that they kind of work, they kind of have different roles in our system. Like if you heard, for example, like dopamine, serotonin, like dopamine is somehow it's related to motivation. Serotonin is like just your well-being. There's like adrenaline, which you know that you need to do something, you need to do it like fast. So when this impulse in the neuron travels, and it happens like at a large scale, it generates a magnetic field, which can be measured by scientists. And in general, there's this thing called neural correlates of consciousness. This is how scientists think of, so something happens in your environment. Your brain registers it, something happens inside, and then somehow it's converted into your experience. And while the scientists don't understand the experience part yet, they know that they can measure these electrical impulses, and they can sometimes get an idea of what you are thinking about just using these measurements. So one of the ways that we can like look at what the brain is doing is using the electroencephalogram, which is measuring the magnetic field or like the electrical impulses. So when there are multiple, like many neurons, you know, like millions of neurons are firing, this actually creates like a bands of waves. So there are like many impulses, you know, they are like fields are summed up, and we can measure these fields. And scientists, for example, found that different frequencies of your brain, they usually correspond to different states, such as like, are you sleeping or are you like concentrated? So nowadays also really, I think, popular thing that many people talk about are brain-computer interfaces, and what can we do, like what's been like possible to do with that. And perhaps you saw like how people, you know, they can like control their robotic arms using the brain-computer interfaces. So the thing with that is like it's still, I guess, like early stage. The problem is that the throughput of the signals is really like small to do something like really complex. But for example, moving like a prosthetics, yeah, it's possible. We can also get a look deeper inside the brain using the fMRI. And but the problem with that is that well, you need to lie into this thing. So measuring brain activity here is kind of limited in that way. Perhaps also you don't know, but there's a way to basically make, at this moment, only mice think something using light. So scientists found that they can inject some proteins into mice neurons, and they change how your neurons work, that when you shine the light on this neuron, it activates. So you can make mouse do things, basically, against its will, I guess. And well, because we are talking about like artificial intelligence, like what even is intelligence, right? So like in general, it's just, you know, some ability to like solve problems, like learn and so on. In the brain, the learning, like as far as it's right now understood, is the synapses that like fire more, like the cells that fire more, they kind of become stronger. So like when you repeat something, these connections become stronger. That's how you like probably acquire like memories and skills. With artificial intelligence, and like what even is, like what are these, like all these terms like AI and so on. So AI is a really like a general thing. It's just any algorithms that like do things that usually only humans like can do. Then there's machine learning, which is like a subset of artificial intelligence, and it provides tools how does the algorithm like learn. And then there is deep learning, which is like more kind of like a recent thing, which uses the artificial neural networks. And then, of course, there are like different types of learning, which maybe we can skip for now. There is like reinforcement learning when the like agent computer tries to learn from the environment using its like mistakes. So a little bit about the artificial neural networks, why are they called like that? So like the simplest neural network is actually, it's just one neuron basically. It's called perceptron, and you get like input signals, you sum them up, you apply some like function, decision function, and you get like some result. And the artificial neural network is just kind of like a real brain. You have just many neurons connected to each other, like in different layers and so on. So for example, there is this type of a neural network called convolutional neural network, which is used for the computer vision. Interesting thing about it is that if you look at what's happening in these layers of this network, if you like extract the features from these layers, then if your network was learning, for example, faces, then you could see that it kind of happens like hierarchically. You have like different features, which may be like edges, like circles, and so on, that then are combined into maybe eyes, ears, and so on. And at the end, this is all combined into a like high level feature, which is resembling some kind of a face. And there were like experiments where scientists actually looked at, is this similar to what's going on in the brain? And it kind of actually is similar. So when we see something like, basically data goes through our eye to the opposite lobe, to the temporal cortex, and it like travels in a linear sequence, basically, where scientists were measuring that in these different regions of brain, they kind of correspond to seeing different hierarchical features. And maybe you've heard of such a condition called prosopagnosia. Basically, when person cannot recognize faces. So they see people, but they cannot tell their like faces apart. It's like really strange thing, but it exists. And it turns out that in our brain, there's a very specific area that is responsible for recognition of faces. It's called, it's like fusiform, and it's like somewhere at the end of the visual cortex. Okay, I need to go back here. And basically, when this area gets damaged, or when there's like a lesion, or basically people cannot tell other people apart. Like really strange that just one region in the brain is somehow responsible for recognizing faces. Now, okay, so vision is great, right? But we live in a world where we have a dimension of time. So, everything that happens, it happens sequentially. And how do neural networks work with sequential data? So there is a concept of a recurrent neural network where each like a step, which is like, if you have like a music, it can be like one, a second of music or something like that, or like each word in a sentence, it's passed to the same neural network. And also the output of this network is passed to itself. So it's like working in a recurrent mode. So when I was studying at Tartu, like I thought, oh, these things are like really promising. But then it turned out that they had some problems with like large data sets and they were slow. And then at some point, I think it was year 2018, somebody from Google, they wrote a paper on which basically all like modern AI models are based. It was called like attention is all you need. And it was like using really clever tricks that you don't need the recurrency in the neural network. And like all you need is attention. And attention in a neural network, it's kind of similar to what we call the attention. So when you like look at data, when you look at like some word in a sentence or in a text, like what other words should you pay attention to understand this word, basically. And yeah, and they called this model transformer. And so right now, like all the ChatGPTs and so on, they are actually like the large language models, they are actually transformers. And for this lecture, I was kind of trying to understand like what's the difference between the attention in a transformer and in a human. And like I found a paper that my attention was already weak, so I didn't like want to read it. So instead, I just asked ChatGPT, just tell me what are the differences between like your attention and my attention. And I mean, of course, like our biological attention, it serves like some evolutionary purpose, and somehow like we need to select what is like important for us, for like I guess survival. But for for a machine, it's just a function that people invented so it can efficiently process stuff, work with like texts and so on. And yeah, if you go to a Wikipedia and you look at the timeline of machine learning, you will see that it ends in 2020s with like ChatGPT and Stable Diffusion, like top things. And I guess the question that right now people think, so okay, what's next? Where is all of that going? And maybe let's now take a brief excursion into consciousness. So like everybody has it, but like scientists don't understand how it is like really working, like in details. There are like many theories, many philosophers, like hundreds, maybe thousands, like of books written on this topic, but like nobody can, just present it as like a complete theory with evidence that is like irrefutable. And so the consciousness, what is it about? The subjective experience that somehow everything that happens, all of our like feelings, senses, and so on, they are somehow bound into an experience. So like I look at you and what's my experience? Okay, like I see a group of like people watching me. And if you want to read about this more, it's called a binding problem. And there's also a so-called hard problem of consciousness, which I guess it's kind of the same thing. It's asking like, why is it like that? Why is it like that, Okay, it's philosophy, so maybe it's not really interesting. Is it white and gold, or is it blue and black? But okay, like you've seen that before. Somehow, for some unknown reason on the internet, it was popular like a few years back that people were arguing, is it blue and black or is it white and gold? How anybody can see here white and gold, I don't know. I always seen here blue and black, but that's the nature of experience. People experience things differently. So look at this picture and tell me, is A and B, which is darker, or are they the same color? Are you sure? Because you know it. Because you've seen it somewhere else, right? Like, I know. Every time I look here, like, I don't see how are they the same color, but yeah, they're the same color. Perception.
Magic.
And yeah, and of course perception can be influenced, like your consciousness can be influenced. So there are all the different kinds of like pathologies that, you know, something happens in your brain, like, I don't know, schizophrenia. You can have like hallucinations, you know, like you can hear people talking to you. You have like some mood disorders, like you can be excessively like depressive or manic or anxious. Again, this kind of changes your perception of things and it changes your consciousness. So there are many substances that are, they work like our neurotransmitters. So they like bind to the same receptors in our brain. And so if you take these substances, it changes how you think, how you feel, and so on. There are like different techniques like meditation that, again, it changes, for example, the frequencies like in your brain, the dominant, like the band that you can get kind of in a state where the frequencies are telling that this person is actually like sleeping, but actually no, like you're awake, but you're just meditating. There are all weird stuff like near-death experiences where, again, people just, I don't know, their experience of it is really strange. And yeah, and all of that stuff, it changes our consciousness, changes our experience. Lucid dreaming. I don't know. Everybody tried it. Everybody had a lucid dream. Like, you're sleeping, right? But like you can just do, like, I don't know, do stuff in this world. So it's just an experience, right? So looking from the outside, it's different to tell that, you know, something's like happening with that person, but actually like inside you may be like, you know, traveling to Paris, France, and so on. Again, like weird stuff that your consciousness can do. And of course, like talking about AI and brains, more about brains, is there's this question like, are we really free? Do we have a free will? I mean, like, the way I think is that if the universe is more like, you know, deterministic, like, you know, everything is like a billiard ball, so you like hit it and you know well where it will end up, then like what kind of free will there can be. But then there was discovered like quantum mechanics, and nobody like really understands like what it's all about, but it suggests that maybe there's like chance that not everything is like determined. So like, strange stuff. And there were some interesting experiments on the topic of free will. One of these experiments is, so the scientist asked the person to basically, so they were like sitting, and the scientist asked them, when you decide that you want to like flick your wrist, give it a 5 seconds and then like flick it. And of course the person had a watch. And so what they measured is when the person said that, I decided it at that moment, measuring your brain, they found out that actually there was like a signal that happened before you decided. So it's not clear how it happened, like, but you know, like a suggestion that you know, maybe it's like your subconscious or something decided for you. And another really interesting experiment, and I suggest you can just watch the YouTube. So the brain has like 2 hemispheres, and sometimes, people like to say that, okay, like one is for like creativity and another is for logic. And I guess it's kind of not really true, but there is a difference in that one hemisphere is more for speech and another is more for basic functions, I think, like vision. And there are persons whose two hemispheres are kind of separated. And the experiment was done on that kind of person. And so what's happening is that the person is holding a key. So in the right hemisphere, so it understands that what it's dealing with is a key, and there is a shown words are shown to the person, and the ring word is on the right. It means that in the left hemisphere, which is responsible for speech, it reads that word and it understands that the concept is like a ring. A ring. And basically, when after that the person is asked, "What were you holding?" they say, "I was holding a ring." Because when you are asked, you are using speech to answer, and in the model of the world that is described by words, the person was thinking that they were holding a ring. So models of consciousness, of how our experience arises, there are lots. Just go on Wikipedia. So I can show you some of them, which are kind of considered that, okay, maybe these have the most promise. And they have really difficult descriptions. So what I did, I just gave description to ChatGPT, told me, okay, let's just describe it how it looks, okay? And there's a global workspace theory that is, it kind of is about attention. It's that when something is happening in our brain, there's this scene, and it comes on this scene, and what we experience is on this scene. And all the other parts of the brain, they're kind of the spectators in a theater or something. But if you want a more technical description, just go to the Wikipedia. There's integrated information theory, which states that the consciousness is the integration of the information itself. It's really a mathematical theory, and I didn't understand it at all. Then there's also some theories that say that, okay, maybe the quantum mechanics is somehow responsible for our consciousness. So this is a way for those that want the free will to exist. You can say that, okay, maybe it has something to do with quantum mechanics, because, quantum mechanics, it's not maybe, not deterministic like that. So there's this orchestrated objective reduction theory, that there's some quantum effects happening in the microtubules in our brain. But from what I understand, it's considered a fringe theory. Scientists don't really think it's true. And then some of the research suggests that there is this area in our brain called claustrum, which it has this property that it's connected. It's really well connected to everything else inside of your brain. So all the information, all the senses vision, touch, and so on, all of it can be easily accessed by this region. And there is some research going on that if this area is damaged, then people get unconscious easily. So kind of suggests that maybe it has, consciousness is, just in this region, kind of. Yeah, I mean, I don't believe the AI has consciousness. I mean, why would it? But just to make sure, I asked ChatGPT, and I mean, he confirmed, yes, I don't have it. How is like all of that can be even like judged? So I guess like you heard the Turing test that just by talking to the AI, like if it's convincing enough, if it can convince you that it's a real person, that it should be like intelligent and conscious, but then it's all just all the algorithms and like the rules, and then there's this argument that if you put a person inside of a room and you show this person like Chinese symbols, you give them a rule book and tell them if you see like these symbols, then write on a paper another symbol and like output it. Meaning that the system, like the person doesn't understand the words. The system somehow processes the words and gives you the answers, but there's no understanding there. And yeah, where can it all go like from here? Again, I just asked the ChatGPT, because why not? I mean, it should be able to self-improve, right? If it's a real AI. And I mean, it kind of gave like a nice answer that what the current AI is missing is that the learning is inefficient. It's not like, the neural plasticity in our brain, the chatbots and all these algorithms on the PCs, they are not embodied. So they cannot go out, into the world and just learn things. They are kind of just confined to like a memory on a PC, that they don't have real like sensors. And of course, all of that is solvable because, there are like robots like Atlas. Then I saw recently some Chinese robots like Uni 3, and the robots are getting kind of cheaper and cheaper. So maybe at some point, if people put all these models onto a robot and just let it use some kind of new learning algorithm, then actually who knows what's going to happen, right? Yeah, so we as biological organisms are, well, it's kind of like accepted in science, but maybe nobody believes in it, but still it's generally accepted that it was evolution that created the organisms like us. And right now the evolution for these models happens on like by humans. We select which model is useful for us and so on. So there is no like evolutionary pressure for models to become like I don't know, themselves like independent and so on. And yeah, I just hope if somebody comes up with a real like strong general AI, that this AI will have the 3 rules of Asimov. And if you don't know these rules, the first is that it shouldn't harm humans. The second rule is that it should obey humans' orders. And the third is that it should protect itself. And the rules take, precedence, that the first is most important, the second can be disobeyed if it breaks the first rule, and the third can be disobeyed if it breaks like the first or the second. Because, yeah, I mean, nobody wants to live in the like killbot hellscape, right? As I mentioned, there are like millions of books on this topic. It's like really speculative topic. People have like a lot to say, which I don't know, maybe will or maybe will not come true. So if you want to believe that AI cannot come into existence, you can read The Emperor's New Mind, which tries to convince you that there is some quantum effects in your brain, and so AI cannot be conscious for some reason. So, or you can read Superintelligence to maybe become a little bit anxious about the future, or you can read Homo Deus if you want to fantasize about becoming like a post-human cyborg and uploading your mind to some PC. Sorry?
AWS?
Yes, or Azure, honestly, yeah. So, yeah, here is some memes for you at the end. I mean, this take by philosopher Zizek, I actually like it, yeah. I mean, if AI will just do my job and I just do what I want, I mean, that's great, right? I don't think it will work like that, but... So yeah, thank you for your attention, and that's all from me.
Any questions, guys?
Okay, so, oh, Max, yeah.
Thank you. I'll just probably pass here. Sergey, if we are talking about the consciousness in general, right? So what's your favorite theory of that?
Well, I admit that I really like to believe that I have free will. So because of that, I believe that there is some quantum effects. But like...
All right. That makes sense. Okay, thank you.
So thank you for the presentation. I wanted to ask the Harari book, the Homo Deus. Firstly, did you read it yourself as well?
Yeah, I read it, but I actually don't remember what it was about, because all of that is kind of like blog posts, you know. People write about, oh, you know, it's like if you know about like transhumanism, it's basically, yeah, it's about that. Like, I mean,
Okay.
it didn't say anything new to me, so it's kind of like, yeah.
Okay.
But if you're new to topic, like, I guess it's good.
Mm-hmm. Then I wanted to ask a second question, a bit specifically about that. What do you think of the idea at the end of the book about basically the conclusion that was possible that we could basically turn off our so-called free will if this goes on like this, transhumanism? So what do you think of that perspective that the author posed?
Well, I don't like this. I mean, it is what it is. Like, if it's gonna be like that, it's gonna be like that. But I don't know. It's all just speculation, I guess. If I wanted to speculate, I would say that, okay, there's like some quantum effects in the brain that you cannot interfere with without destroying consciousness. So, you know, maybe like there's like some quantum like state, and so maybe, you know, it's unique that you cannot change it. That, like, I don't know. It's all just a speculation.
Okay,
But,
thank
yeah.
you.
I also have one question. When we talk about AI as a tool, or basically the concept of like general intelligence that is able to perform tasks better than humans, for example, like software engineering or architecture or whatever, you know, in my mind, there's like no doubt that at some point these machines will become better at certain tasks than us humans. But when we talk about the aspect of real like evolution or like human consciousness or what makes someone human, do you think that whether we as people are in essence just somewhat very sophisticated neural network algorithm, or there will always be something that puts us aside from the machines?
Well, it ties into the previous questions. Like, I want to believe that there is some like essential difference that you cannot, you know, simulate a brain. So you cannot. So, you know, I want to believe. Okay, but unfortunately, I think that there is no difference. Unfortunately, I think it's just really, yeah, just, you know, algorithms. But I want to believe.
All right. In that case, thank you so much, Sergey.